Hi, I'm Chris Predick with Critical Path Training, and we're going to talk about developing BI applications, specifically Performance Point Services. So Performance Point Services is all about bringing data to the users in the form of dashboards and scorecards. So the key phrase that tends to come about when working with Performance Point is context-driven dashboards. And what this allows the end user to do is dig through data, understand filtering, and give an interactive way for the user to understand what's going on. And that's why the dashboards are context-driven. It's because we can modify them based on what we're trying to do as an end user. So it provides a design environment for power users, which is in the form of a designer that we can use to build all of our business intelligence objects, and then a browser view for business users that allows them to manipulate what they see so that they can better understand the problems they're trying to solve. So what are dashboards? Dashboards are ways of displaying information that's related and correlated in a real-time environment. So for example, I'll have a dashboard that's going to contain information that's live right now. And I can modify one part, and by selecting an item in one piece of the dashboard, another piece of the dashboard will adapt and become more detailed based on that. So it gives us this way of digging into the data, getting a better understanding of how everything relates, and then providing that information with links to more data, all to the user in one place. So what are scorecards then? You hear these phrases of dashboards and scorecards that are often used interchangeably. Well, what's the difference? When it comes down to it, what a scorecard does is provide you an overall view of your status. So it takes your status indicators, organizes them, groups them, and allows you to filter them, and gives you information on your key performance indicators throughout your system. And these are often included as part of a dashboard. One important detail to note is that Performance Points scorecards are balanced scorecard certified. So to use Performance Point Services and build applications, you're going to use a special tool. To start this tool, you click a button on the Performance Point Services page, and it'll launch the tool using one-click deployment in .NET. And this tool allows you to connect to data sources, it allows you to connect to other content and generate other content, and eventually build dashboards that contain all the information you need. We also have support for multiple data sources. We can access analysis services data, Excel services data, SharePoint lists, all within one Performance Point Services dashboard. And all of the choices you make about those data services are just stored in an XML file on the site. So this fancy designer just generates an XML file and stores it in a list. So there's no special magic behind. It's just a different way of interpreting data inside of SharePoint. We also have the ability to expose that information in the browser as web part pages. So these dashboards that you build are really just collections of web parts that sit on top and reference items in lists that reference information in other sources and aggregate it for you. So there's really, again, no magic here. It's just a matter of building the tools or using the tools we already have and extending them and bringing them together to create these dashboards. And the last piece of information that we get is an interactive design tool or an interactive digging tool that allows us to dig through the data using a simple Silverlight application on the browser. And we'll see an example of this shortly. But the important thing is it allows us to do analysis that wasn't previously defined. So when we build the scorecards in the dashboards, we have predefined relationships that exist. This tool allows you to deviate from those relationships and explore areas that you may not have thought of. So let's go ahead and look at a demo where we're going to build our own Performance Point Services dashboard based on some data in Analysis Services. So for this demo, we're going to start in our Business Intelligence Center template, and we're going to select this Monitor Key Performance section and go to Start Using Performance Point Services. On this page is where you're going to start building all of your Performance Point Services applications. The primary way to start it is to click this Run Dashboard Designer button, and what will happen is the entire designer will be downloaded for you and installed and then automatically run. This is an example of the Dashboard Designer in action. And what you can see is that there's two areas here on the left that are most important to us. The first is our data sources. And this is what allows us to connect to external data. We can have as many data sources as we need, but in this example we're connecting to an analysis services database. We then have all of our content, our dashboard, our KPIs, our scorecards, and our reports. But for now, let's start with our data connection. You can see that our data connection is connected to this machine and the AdventureWorks Data Warehouse 2008 and the AdventureWorks Cube. The other important section of the data source is what's called the time mapping. And this is what allows our page to be specific to the current day. So what we do is we define a dimension called the time dimension that is used to determine what day it is. We create a reference member. In this case, we say that our reference point in the data set is the 1st of January 2003. And then we correlate that to the 1st of January in 2009. And what this means is if the real time is January 1st, 2009, it will use January 1st, 2003 as the current day in the data source. And this allows us to do mapping. And in this case, it allows us to look at data today that was accurate 6 years ago, so we have something in our UI. We then have to map certain types of information, year, semester, quarter, month, date, to actual values in our time dimension, so the system knows how to handle the relationships between them. Once we have our data source set up, we can start to build other items. The first thing we're going to look at is internet sales. And what we're going to define on this is that our sales are based on 3 key values: month to date, quarter to date, and year to date. And all of these are calculated using the data in our data source. So for example, on the year-to-date value, we have a data mapping to the internet sales amount, and we have a filter that says only calculate sales that are within this year-to-date. We do the same thing for month-to-date and quarter-to-date to calculate those individual values. We then define an actual, and what was our target. And this target is what we're actually shooting for. So our KPI is a relationship between, in this case, our target value and the year-to-date. We determine what our target value is by building a simple formula that calculates last year's sales and multiplies it by 1.25 to increase it by 25%. So what this says is our target here is that we go to a green indicator, as you can see here, when we hit 100% of our target. So when the years-to-date sales is 25% higher than last year's, we're successful. So this KPI describes an indicator that's important to us, but it doesn't include extra information that we might find useful. So that's where the dashboard comes into play. In this dashboard, we've set up a measure of internet, or a KPI of internet sales. So this says internet sales are what I want to see in my scorecard. But we want to break down our scorecard based on sales territories and different countries. So our scorecard now takes that KPI and calculates it broken down by each country and gives us information about what we're doing. If we want more information about what's going on, we can also build a report. And in this case, we can build a report that shows us for the current calendar year what is our internet sales amount broken down by product category. So we've got another report that now gives us information by category, whereas the other one gave us information by sales territory. But what we can do is we can relate these two pieces of information using our dashboard. So our dashboard here is our internet sales dashboard, and on the top we've placed our sales, and on the bottom we've placed our sales by category report. So we've got our scorecard right on top of it, and we're relating them. We're defining a relationship that specifies, I want to get some filtering information for my report based on the current item selected in the scorecard. And I want to relate the different measures or my filtering capabilities in my report to the current selected row. So let's go ahead now and deploy this and look at what it shows in the browser. So you can see that it now calculates all of our sales and gives us information. But we can now select an individual country, and it will now filter our sales here based on that country's sales. So as I move between the items, I get a different set of information down below. So this allows us our context, or in other words, what we've selected on the page, plus the current time, to adjust the data that's being presented. The only downside to this approach is the only information that's being presented is information that was explicitly created in the designer tool. What if, as an analyst, I want to know why something is true, why we're seeing so many sales or why we're seeing so few sales? What I can do is I can bring up this decomposition tree, and it can give me some extra information. And what it starts by doing is telling us, well, we sold 16 million bikes. But I want to know some information. I want to break down those sales based on some information. Well, let's see, for example, if we sell more bikes when there's a good promotion on. So we're going to break it down by category. And what we see is that when we have higher percentage sales, it doesn't have a significant impact. But let's now look at our sales and see if we sell any more in any given month. So we're going to click month now. And we see that there are definitely months that we sold more. In 2003, for example, it seems like we sold a lot more. So let's go ahead and break it down by year now. And we can see that 2003 is a good year. And we can break it down by the halves of year, by the quarters, and by the months. And you can definitely see that we see a better sales in certain months than others. So this allows us to drill through data in non-standard ways to learn more. And then what we learn could potentially be applied through the designer back to more standard interpretations. So this decomposition tree gives us the ability, as end users, to explore the data in slightly different ways. All of these tools together give us a way of analyzing our data, organizing it, and then presenting it to those that need it in a way that allows them to maximize understanding and maximize benefit for the business.